Welcome. This is All Minus One Quick Shots. Folks, today we have GameStop Gate, Gamergate 2, Financial Boogaloo. And everyone's talking about it. Why are they talking about it? Because it's about the elite and their power and their ability to essentially not allow the little guy to compete with them. But I don't want to go on about it because really, who cares? It doesn't mean anything in the larger scheme. They're going to get their bailouts one way or another. They are going to face class action suits, most likely, but it's still going to be cheaper than them losing all kinds of value within their stock. What is more important is that we are seeing how the elitists run things, and people are waking up to that, and there is open rebellion. And there has been rebellion for a long time. We've been seeing riots. We've seen this all around the world. We've seen the rise of Antifa, which is a very old organization, but we've seen it rise up in the last few years, largely out of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Obviously, there is BLM. Again, they were created or established in 2012. You have the Boog Boys, who are anarchists, and they seem to be aligned with BLM and Antifa, so they're maybe rightish as far as they want anarchy, but they're basically lefties, as far as I can tell. And I've covered them before. Remember, they did the whole big Michigan thing? Funny how the FBI was able to infiltrate them, but Antifa, not so much. Then you have the Trumpsters. Who are the Trumpsters? Well, they're all the folks, all the MAGA folks. You know, I'm not one of those. I'm a regular just supporter of Trump. I call balls and strikes with the man, and he had some issues, but largely I supported the fact that he was helping more than any other president in the last 2 decades, the little guy. You can make arguments, well, he enriched the rich too. I don't care if they get rich, if the little guy gets brought up. And of course, you have groups like the Proud Boys. Now, the Proud Boys are mostly a fraternity of guys that go around and they will defend people. They're not really starting stuff, but of course, the media will label them. On top of that, we have seen in the past few years, we've seen some attacks related to eco-terrorism. We've seen a lot of course, Islamist attacks in certain areas. There is a lot of chaos and confusion, and there is very little that those in power are doing to listen to the people. And I want to show you why. This is a study from Vox.com is this article. One of the good studies that they actually covered some years ago. And this is a study about how the rich do not listen to the people. This was in January 2015. So if we go down, it says, who really matters in our democracy, the general public or the wealthy elites? Well, as I've been telling you, it's the wealthy elites. Here is the full study. It is linked in that Vox article. It is from Cambridge University Press. And the author of the study, I believe, did this in conjunction with Princeton. So yes, political scientists Martin Glens of Princeton and Benjamin Page of Northwest. The study got lots of attention over the past year because the authors conclude basically that the U.S. has a corrupt oligarchy where all oligarchy voters barely matter, or ordinary voters barely matter. And I cover this all the time. I try to explain this to you, but this is why you're seeing so much chaos around the world, because this is how it works, and it works via NGOs. They're really the ones who pull the strings. Again, there is no theory here. There is no made-up conspiracy. This is fact. There is scientific evidence about all of this. There's sociological, economic evidence, as well as the words of the folks themselves. Speaking of which, I'll be doing another storytime segment probably later on today. So, if we continue down this article, it's going to show some graphs, preferences of average citizens, 0.3, preferences of economic elites, 0.76. This is out of 0.1, meaning that 1 being 100%, right? Alignment of interest groups, 0.56. That's how the influence runs. In contrast, the preference of economic elites and interest groups, especially economic elites are each quite influential when the preference of the other two groups are held constant. There are charts to help explain this. And I guess this is the average preference of the average citizen and the effects that the government decides to take. And then here are the economic elites and the effects, the things that they wish to do get implemented. Again, what are some criticisms on the study? Well, you can read all that yourself because this is a quick shot segment and I'm not really planning to get into all of that. What I will show you is from Upworthy. We have the same thing. This is from, again, 2015. 20 years of data reveal that Congress doesn't care about what you think. And like, is this a surprise to anybody, really? This is why I don't understand why you folks vote for these people like your AOCs or your Nancy Pelosi's. And I hear lefties talk about it. They're like, oh, I love her. Oh, I love them. They're so good. They're so great. There's very few people I like in the federal government. I think Thomas Massey's pretty good. I like Rand Paul. I like, let me think here. Matt Gaetz seems to be pretty good. Very few. Are they perfect? No. I like Tulsi Gabbard, although her economic policies are horrid. But see, that's the thing, is the left and the right won't agree on that because the leftists are deranged about reality and how economics work. And people on the right just understand, well, you have to go work. You have to produce something. Your capital is your labor. The left doesn't get that. They want to make everyone a slave. They think that by accepting nature, you've enslaved yourself. Whereas we say, no, not really. In fact, by accepting nature and through technology and hard work, we actually free ourselves even more. But what you're saying is that my labor is supposed to be part of your labor. My labor is supposed to be part of your end product, part of your capital, if you would. My labor is supposed to take care of you. And this doesn't work. It fails time and time again. We saw that there were big issues with this in Plymouth with the Pilgrims back in the day. That's one of the reasons why we have the holiday of Thanksgiving. And I know someone out there will say, well, Bill, the Pilgrims had Thanksgiving the year before that. Yeah, they nearly starved to death. And yes, they had a harvest feast. But the true Thanksgiving was the year afterwards when they went to a capitalist system, a system of personal responsibility. Because the thing that you must understand, a fundamental psychological and philosophical principle, folks, is that when you strip away the responsibility of an individual, you've made them a slave. And when you do that, they don't care. They have apathy. They only will produce enough to get by. Whereas on the other hand, if you give people incentives, something that gives them meaning, something that gives them purpose, you provide good leadership, what happens? Well, they start to get their own initiative to do things, and they do better. Now, will everyone do that? No, there's always 10%. There's always going to be a 10% of people who can't take care of themselves because they're physically or mentally incapable, or 10% of people who are just trash. And that doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. Like, trash is trash, folks. There are just some people that are not good people. We generally send them to prison. We remove them from society. And that's supposed to be a punishment, by the way, that isolation, the same thing that we're doing right now during this pandemic. So this is the ideal reality and 30% likelihood, ideal representation, and 100% support. Basically, the idea is that those who would support anything in the populace tend not to get it. And again, this goes on, and this is Upworthy again. I mean, you can look this up. You can just type in, Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever you prefer to use. You can simply type in like study government doesn't listen to people or something like that. It will come up, I promise. And it says why? Because purchasing political influence is 100% legal. And it happens in a lot of ways. And it talks about lobbyists and other stuff. There are ways to get through this and around this and buy this, but probably the biggest thing that we can do is scale down. And this is why I say we need breakaway societies. I don't consent to this. I don't consent to any of this. This is not the way the government is supposed to work. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be a part of the leftism. I don't want to be a part of the social justice stuff. I don't want to be a part of the intersectionality stuff. I just want to be left alone to raise my family the way I see fit. I don't like authoritarians. I really despise bullies. So this is act.represent.us, or represent us, and it says the problem. And this is actually a petition you can sign. It talks about this study. The study again, well, let's see here. The study again is here, testing theories of American politics, elites, interest groups, and average size. So again, like this whole thing that's going on with the stock market and the hedge funds and whatever else, this is people rebelling, and they're going to continue to figure out ways to rebel, to stick it to the man. And as this happens, we're going to see a greater and greater divide in the powers that rule, the oligarchs, and everyone else. And I promise you, lefties, if you get to implement your system, because your system is largely what's being implemented here, and this is how sickly brainwashed you've been, you don't understand that what you call for and ask for is actually causing the problem. You don't live in a free market. You live in a largely centrally planned, corporatized economy that is a form of soft fascism. I get it when you say it's fascism. Capitalism's fascism. Capitalism is not fascism. Capitalism is simply you being your own labor, your own product, your own means of production, and owning that. That's what free markets and laissez-faire capitalism are about. And if you read the history on this, folks, you only have to go back to the early 20th century, the late 19th century. It has done more to bring any person out of poverty ever in any time of human history. And we went away from it into progressivism, into fascism, into communist, socialistic ideas. These controlled economies, centralized economies, are the problem. Go read Ron Paul's In the Fed. He talks about how the Federal Reserve System with its fiat currency, a communist idea, by the way, is what is causing a large portion of this corruption. Why? Because it's easy money, easy access to those at the top, while you and I become debt slaves. And I am telling you now, I am a slave to no man. I have one master, and his name is Christ Jesus, and that is it. Otherwise, I do what I want. And I get it. There are laws and whatever else. I'm not here to hurt anybody. I shun violence. I quit my former professions because they were professions of violence. I do not want to participate. But many people want to force these things upon me as well. And I say no. This is why I call for a peaceful divorce, a peaceful movement away from this stuff. I say don't go out in the streets and protest and do these things. But I get it. Again, that's what this financial stuff is about right now. What I'm going to start calling GameStop Gate, or Gamergate 2 financial Boogaloo, right? And Gamergate was a big deal with a lot of stuff involved in it at the time. And again, it went back to the elites and them trying to tell you how to run your life, as those people in Davos right now are discussing with all of the world leaders, by the way. Because it's not about representative democracy, guys. It's not about constitutional republics. It's about oligarchs versus the average man and woman. And you have to start understanding these things in a proper perspective. With all that said, folks, this has been All Minus One Quick Shots, and I wish you all well.